It's not a holiday. It's like going to heaven. And we're on the road to Shangri-La with an International ICP podcast.
All right, Tech Professor.
I'm laughing. Hey, what are you trying to do? Murder me? No, only cut your truck. No, only cut your truck. No, only cut your truck. Only cut your truck. Only cut your truck. No, only cut your truck. Only cut your truck.
Hi, Brian. Hi, Rob.
Hello, dirty hair Dan Fitztastic. How you doing?
I'm living the dream, man. I live in Grenada. I still live in paradise. Life's easy here. There will be some frogs in the background and probably a dog barking, but that's because we got nature and stuff. How is the nature in Shanghai?
It's okay. It's been real. This is plum rain season, so it's really rainy almost every day. Very heavy, like back when we lived in Florida. You don't have any goats still living in your home anymore?
No more goats anymore, sadly. My dog that I have really hates goats. That is a total aside, and so I don't think that would jibe.
Mm-hmm. You wouldn't like me because I'm a goat. Anyway, after a slight delay, we're at our second episode of The Road to Shangri-La, an International ICP Podcast. Lots of different reasons for that, mostly because Dan couldn't get his shit together, but that's okay.
Hey.
Yeah, hey. No, I was also a part of that delay, but we have a special guest today, and we have a very special piece of media in the Juggalo ICP world to cover. This piece of media, the slice of cinematic clown montage, covers the 2008 Gathering of the Juggalos. And I'm talking about the movie A Family Underground, directed by Paul Anderson. That's right, Dan?
I like that it's Paul Anderson. I'm like, not to be confused with Paul Thomas Anderson. I think Paul Anderson may have come along first and made a bigger name for himself than PTA did. So, yes, indeed.
Perhaps,
Paul Anderson, Andresen, I'm not sure.
I'm not quite sure either. And he's mostly done commercial work, and he hasn't done anything well, but we'll get to him later. But we are joined by a guest here on my end, here in Shanghai, with someone who I thought could give some keen, incisive insight into various aspects of what we're covering here. He's not particularly familiar with the Insane CIown Posse, but that might be a good thing as well. His virgin ears and eyes were first broke their clown hymen to this documentary. I'm speaking to local filmmaker, movie guy, and British chap, Rob Ellis. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Brian. Hello, everyone. It's been a while since anyone's talked about my virgin ears or eyes, I must say.
Yeah. So Rob's a buddy of mine, and I had him do a project, or he was involved with a project where I brought him to another country to film documentaries, and you do other film work as well. You also work in 3D stuff. Talk a little bit about who you are and the work you've done.
Well, yeah, I mean, I should hold the microphone probably. Well, let's see. I've been in Shanghai for like a bit over 10 years, and I'm mainly working in the soul-crushing field of advertising. Let's see what else I do. Yeah, do all sorts of video work, shooting, editing, 3D, indeed 3D. I also 5 years ago started a company working in VR, AR, and all that new techie lovely stuff. So yeah, I just kind of gallivant around town, try not to get run over, that kind of stuff.
Well, that's a typical Shanghai thing. But you've also done short films, and you've also done some documentary work, right?
Yeah, I did some. Yes, like you mentioned, we did a documentary about a rock tour in Mongolia, and I did a sort of short comedy film with a friend of mine here in Shanghai called "Taking the Piss," about public toilet etiquette and all the chaos that can ensue from that.
Mm-hmm. And
very important stuff. Very important.
Very important stuff. It was a fun short film. I enjoyed it. It was cool. took place in the bathroom in the loo.
Now is an important part in the social zeitgeist of Shanghai, I'm sure.
I dug it. I thought it was fun. Just to reiterate, what was your familiarity in any sort of context or aspect with the Insane Clown Posse and the Juggalo world before we got here?
Absolutely zero.
Have you Did you?
No, well, yeah, no. You did give me the homework of watching this film. I think about like 1 month ago. I think so. I watched this film once 1 month ago.
Well, that's okay. So it's like I said, you'll be kind of in a fugue state. It was probably a dream. What happened? Yeah.
I think I watched over multiple episodes of my dream state. Yeah.
Okay, but before that, you had no idea. Like if I would have said the Insane Clown Posse, you would have had no context of what we're talking about.
No, I might have thought you were referencing something from The Simpsons, but that's about it.
Because just to give context here, Dan, like on Shanghai Chinese social media, and of course we're based here in Shanghai, you'll sometimes see ICP come up as part of memes that are probably from the West, but some might emanate from here about, of course, miracles, mentioning magnets, or something about just America. And I'm using this term in a derogatory sense, but it's meant in a derogatory sense when it's used like American trash culture. You have no idea. No,
nothing.
All right. Well, that's Rob, and we'll get back to Rob real soon for some of his insight with things. But let's talk about the context a little bit more of this movie, shall we, Dan?
Well, first we got to go with the gather patter, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's all good.
It's been so long. I kind of forgot about it. Well, yeah, but that's still the context of... Well, that's
the context of ICP in our lives.
Yeah, that's right. So what's the latest gather pattern, Dano?
So two interesting things that, since we last talked, that has put Insane Clown Posse in the news. Both of them chiming in on social justice issues, or at least justice issues in one form or another, which, to remind you, they are good citizens. As we mentioned in the first episode, they canceled the gathering of the Juggalos, somewhat out of necessity, but the way that they put the press release out, it really was to talk about, like, this is for the family. We don't want to get anybody infected. We don't want to put anybody in the family at risk. So two things that came out of this. One thing that we talked about in our last episode was, first of all, that they are anti-racist to the core. That is one of their big first things that they talked about.
Carnival of Carnage, we talked about that. Yeah.
Carnival of Carnage, we talked about that. Well, so of course, with a lot of the Black Lives Matter, George Floyd things that have come to the forefront of news, they, of course, reiterated their stand by re-releasing their anti-Confederate flag T-shirts, which proudly show on the front a clown burning the Confederate flag, and on the back, not only do they have Hatchet Man, but it says in big red letters, "Fuck your rebel flag." No kidding. They are not. I've always, ICP has always been a band to really use euphemisms. I feel like they really hold back, and they don't necessarily always. No, I'm just kidding. They say exactly what is on their mind. And a giant black shirt that says "Fuck your rebel flag" in big font. Yeah. Re-released it, reiterated it, put it back on. Available for $25 on their website, which I'm totally buying when I go back to the States.
And since this is an international, intersectional, Insane Clown podcast, and we have, we're both American, but, with that in mind, what the fuck do you think about what's going on in America with Confederate flags and statues? Are you familiar with this? Do you have any sort of sense? And just let's be clear, I did not prep Rob on any of this. You might have no idea what I'm talking about.
I have a vague notion of what you're talking about. I'm not sure about the flag thing. I don't know if that's some recent news that I'm not aware of. But
it's the Civil War. It was the 1860s.
I've heard about the statues and people tearing down statues and all this angst about the statues. What's my opinion on it?
Do you have any sort of thoughts or feelings or things about it?
Yeah, I mean, I taking statues down, if they are indicative of a strong racial prejudice, or like a period that should not be celebrated. I'm fine with that. The problem is when I guess they turn into a rallying cry. You know, when you get two sort of like polar opposites sort of engaging in less of a debate and more of a
mob.
Yeah, I suppose. So, I mean, I agree with it in the right context, where it's like, okay, let's have a discourse about what these represent, and if everyone's like open board, like, okay, yeah, let's take them down and do it in the right way, but not like, fuck you, just like knock it down, and everyone's like, no, don't fucking knock it down, and it turns into a huge mess. I don't think that's.
Yeah, and there has been Black Lives Matters protests in England, and there's been some debate about some Churchill monuments and stuff. I have my buddy Captain Future in London is out involved with a lot of these protests. Shout out to Captain Future. So yeah, there you go, Dan.
So, and like I said, ICP outspoken anti-racist. So they came down on the side of fuck your rebel flag. So I'll go with them. But for me, possibly the more interesting thing that stance that they have taken in the last couple of days, and I sent this one to you, Brian. I don't know if Rob, you have been aware of this, but Insane CIown Posse put up on their Facebook page a very straightforward request to essentially assault a man, to batter a man. And so this is quite interesting. So to give you some context for this, and something I found out today that puts it even more context, the guys in Insane CIown Posse, especially Violent J, are incredibly huge fans of Chris Hansen. You know, To Catch a Predator, which in hindsight makes sense. They actually wrote a song called To Catch a Predator about that in anticipation of you know, what eventually happened is that, go ahead.
Let me explain this to Rob. If I said To Catch a Predator, do you know what this is? It's an incredibly popular American show where they essentially catfish pedophiles into thinking they're going to be meeting up with underage people to have sex with them, but then they arrest them, and it's all on camera.
This is done by the police?
It's done by a TV show hosted by a host named Chris Hansen, done in conjunction with the police.
Oh wow, so that's legal.
It is legal. It's technically, but I think there's a lot of people in the justice community who have some serious issues with that sort of cooperation.
I mean, that sounds a bit borderline to me. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
you said the word entrapment there, did you?
Some would say entrapment.
Particularly that isn't legal, right? Entrapment. That's.
This is a different issue.
I'm not with the American judicial system that much, but I mean, that sounds.
You're raising some interesting issues, but let's cut off that talk right now, just so we can get to the meat of the matter here.
Yeah. So what's particularly interesting about this is this has always been, that is an issue for sure. But what came to light was that Chris Hansen has been doing several episodes of his TV. Well, he has a podcast, video podcast that he does, and he's done several episodes dedicated to kind of outing and bringing on victims of a particular musician named Davi Vanity, of course, based out of the same state that Brian and I are from. He is a Florida man. And he is from a band. I've heard them referred to, what is that? The Crunkcore, I believe, is what I've heard called.
Crunkcore is correct.
Crunkcore. He is the front man for a band called Blood on the Dance Floor. By the way, Brian, born in the same year as us. But so there you go. The connections go much deeper than we wish we knew. But anyways, this guy is
He's a lot prettier than we are, though.
True story. But he is a very, very bad person. He is within Chris Hansen has basically called out this guy, Davi Vanity, for being a serial, basically statutory rapist. And so he's been doing several episodes dedicated to this. And so Violent J, seeing this, put a picture of this dude up to dox him on the ICP page. I will read it to you, and I think it's great. Juggalos, keep your Terminator-style eyeballs open for Juggalo enemy number 1. This peacock wig-wearing, motherfucking fraudulent, fake, phony-ass, devil's dick-sucking, punk-fucking, stone-hearted criminal. 3 exclamation points. For some lame-ass reason, he calls himself Davi Vanity, pronounced sick fuck, but his real name is Jesus Torres. former vocalist of some bullshit band called Blood on the Dance Floor. Active, free roaming, unconvicted, fucking all caps pedophile out here, free roaming, all caps pedophiling. Look him up now. If you spot this free roaming beast out in public somewhere, you know what to do. Pick up a heavy object and inflict necessary beatdown. Just make sure it's the correct guy first and not some totally innocent peacock wig wearing fucking fool. Signed, Pylon J.
I like
Wow.
the consciousness at the end there.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. There's a disclaimer at the end there.
I mean, it should be noted that Violent J, he's got a kid, maybe two, but at least one kid too. So maybe it's a little bit more on the forefront now that I think
His daughter is 17, so that is like
17 already.
I believe she's 17. Yeah. So he has a 17-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old child. So yeah, this is particularly at the forefront for him.
Yeah, and I know she's like in the furry community too, kind of a bit maybe as well. I don't know. So maybe she's into crunkcore and it kind of scared Violent J. But I'm just speculating here. Anyway, yeah, I have some serious issues with how things are going in America in terms of justice and the right to a trial and things like that. So I have some issues with this, but it's certainly an interesting thing for an artist to call other artists out, especially when you're talking about the world of rock and roll and some of the statutory issues some rock stars that I love have had. Go look up, anyone who's interested, go look up Steven Tyler, Aerosmith, and Little Bo Peep. Go look that up sometime and have fun with that.
Anything related to Chuck Berry.
Jerry Lee Lewis. Any of the Sun
God.
guys. Elvis, Jerry Lee Lewis, Roy Orbison. All of them have. Anyway, but that's kind of not even fair because you're talking about Southern guys in the 50s. You're talking about a 2020 guy. There's a lot of different standards and stuff. Anyway, we're getting down deep into the weeds. We're talking too much. I want to get. Let's move on now. That's interesting modern ICP news. Let's talk about.
Well, let me one last thing I'll say is we will put a link to. They went on Chris Hansen's show. ICP did with Chris Hansen and one of David Vanity's victims, and it is quite an exciting watch. I must admit, that is an hour of your life you are definitely going to want to spend watching that. That was from yesterday, and it's great. So
hopefully we can explore that in a future episode of this, just like I love their appearances on Loveline as well, which has some similar connotations and themes as well. We've kind of crossed paths a little bit. Obviously, the movie was the movie that we saw. Once again, we're talking about a family underground, about the 2008 Gathering of the Juggalos. It was released, though, on May 12th, 2009. So I just want to go over some relevant pop culture things that happened in 2009. And some of these things might connect to just what we talked about and some themes in the movie. Speaking of Blood on the Dance Floor, that's a Michael Jackson album. And 2009 is the year that Michael Jackson died.
Touche.
It's also the year the Jersey Shore premiere. I'm not sure if Rob's familiar with
I
it.
didn't watch it, but I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the behavior exhibited and highlighted in the documentary you can also see in the Jersey Shore.
For sure.
2009 is the year Barack Obama was sworn into a, quote, a new era of responsibility. We get some themes about eras of responsibility at the very end of this documentary. And it's also the year Avatar is released, which is a fun thing as well. But Dan, you've got some albums that were released in 2008 when this documentary was the subject of the documentary was highlighted, The Gathering of the Juggalos from 2008.
Yeah, so the music that wasn't big in 2008 was still big in 2009. So we'll call it the 2008 to 2009 era kind of stuff.
Sure.
So I will say, first and foremost, this, I would think, for me, was certainly the height of the Pitchfork indie rock years. Let's give you an idea of, so Pitchfork's #1 album of the year was Fleet Fox's debut. It was a tie between Fleet Fox's debut LP and EP, which is basically, if there were like a Venn diagram of ICP fans and Fleet Foxes fans, there is zero overlap there. They are the most polar opposite bands maybe in the universe. It's a beautiful thing.
Just a quick question. How many band? We didn't look this up. I just thought of this. How many acts who performed on the 2008 Gathering of the Juggalos had ever had an album reviewed in Pitchfork?
Oh, that's a good point. No, but I mean, I know that. Ooh, that's a good question because Andrew WK was on the 2008 bill, and so he has definitely had some time on there.
100%. And I can imagine that maybe Body Count got reviewed, maybe Body
Count.
Which is the Ice-T's band, and he's in it. Yeah, maybe.
So other great things from that year. So just going with general pop moments. In 2008, the top 5 selling albums in the United States, just going with in the United States. Number 1, a hip-hop album, Lil Wayne, The Carter 3. Best-selling album of 2008. So that gives you an idea of what was in the zeitgeist, both critically. That was a really critically lauded album as pretty much one of his like best albums. Certainly that was critically lauded, and his best-selling, and it was the best-selling album in 2008.
It had that big hit Lollipop on it.
Lollipop is the big one, exactly.
But it worked out well because it was at the tail end of literally hundreds of mixtape songs and dozens of albums that he did. Some of the songs and the beats, I think it was actually released later, ICP would put out as special songs. I'm thinking of 6 Foot, 7 Foot. They did a freestyle over and stuff. So I'm sure ICP was hip to Lil Wayne.
Yep. Followed by Coldplay, big seller that year. Taylor Swift's Fearless. Number 4, very relevant to what we're talking about. Kid Rock, Rock and Roll Jesus came out in 2008. That one was, of course, a 2 million seller. Of course, at that point, we had talked about, taking a step back, we talked about him because he is, of course, a guest vocalist on Carnival of Carnage, the first ICP album. At this point, with Rock and Roll Jesus, he literally has one song that has any rap on it. As the name says, Rock and Roll Jesus. He had moved on.
And I'm sure the Confederate flag thing was a big separation point between them as well.
For sure, I could see that. But in trends in hip-hop that year, so Lil Wayne's The Carter, obviously a big one. That was the year that T.I.'s Paper Trail came out. Q-Tip came back. It was his first album in many years with The Renaissance, one of my favorites from that year from the hip-hop realm. Probably another big divisive album, certainly amongst critics and fans, was Kanye West, 808s, and Heartbreak. That was that album. That was another one that came out. So interesting year in music. All of which has tangential. I'd like to think that Insane Clown Posse had an influence on all of that. Certainly on Fleet Foxes.
Keep dreaming there. Where were you in 2008, Rob Ellis?
Manchester.
Matt, were you part of the Manchester scene?
I wasn't mad for Manchester, no, but I was in Manchester.
All right, cool. So cool. Are we covered?
I think we covered pop culture in 08, 09, yeah.
Okay. Where are we now? Okay.
Let's talk about the raison d'etre, our reason for being here.
Yeah. Let's talk about the film A Family Underground. Yeah. Now, let me just say before we saw this, I had seen this movie before a few times. This is one of my favorite documentaries, and that's no hyperbole. Which is why I recommended it early on in our run here. And I really liked it for a lot of reasons. And every time I watch it, I do pick up something a little different. Dan, this was your first time seeing this, right?
Yeah. So let me give a little summary for the people who have not yet watched it. We're going to put a link here and encourage people to watch it before they listen to this. But for those of you who haven't had the time thus far, this documentary is put out by Psychopathic Records. It is the second documentary released by Psychopathic Records. The first was Shockumentary, which is about a 1 hour-ish documentary about Insane Clown Posse. So in order to kind of capture, in their eyes, what was interesting about the ICP culture, they basically wanted to do a documentary about juggalos. And so that's essentially what this is framed as. So this film loosely follows this English couple as they're making their way to the gathering of the Juggalos in 2008, and then just kind of spends the next hour basically cataloging the bands that highlighted it, showing some of their songs, playing some of their songs, interviewing some of the artists, but also really focusing in on the kinds of people that came to the gathering of the Juggalos. And so, and at the end of the film, we'll get to the end of the film and what the payoff is.
Let's
there.
don't spoil alert,
That's
asshole. Not yet. There's a couple of things about the framing. First of all, I love the framing of this movie with Laz and Nikki, who's a couple we can talk a lot about. I feel like we will. One thing that if you watch the movie, I feel like they originally intended on framing it with two couples or two groups. There's Laz and Nikki from England and Team Chaos from our wonderful state of Florida. But ironically,
at the beginning, he's on the phone. He's like, I'm not going to go. And then he's on the phone. He's like, I'm going. And his girlfriend's sort of crying. He's like, why would you go? And he's like,
his pregnant girlfriend.
Oh, God. Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what I thought. Because you see him at the beginning and then he kind of disappears. Right?
Exactly. I'm guessing here, I think Mr. Anderson intended to maybe show a duality, a dual framing device of Laz and Nikki and Team Chaos. But ironically, because
Team Chaos was too chaotic. And
thank you for ruining the punchline, asshole.
Sorry. He said it.
You got it. You got it.
I did.
You
I
can't
said
keep
up,
up
you
with
knocked
Team
it down.
Chaos.
When you hook up with a family unit called Team Chaos, and then they just fuck off, you get what you get what you came for, right?
They literally probably followed them all the way from
They started
Florida.
off with interest. It's Florida. First of all, they're out of the Tampa Bay area. They had Mama Bear, who seemed to be fascinating, and you had the son with the pregnant fiance or girlfriend or whatever it was, or the grandson, I think even maybe, and that had potential. But I think at the end, maybe because Laz and Nikki were so interesting, or maybe Team Chaos just they chaotic. They Team Chaos.
But not interesting enough for it to be caught on film.
Vortex somehow.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that. By the way, Laz and Nikki are from Linsdale, England. Rob Ellis are. I was just about to ask.
I have no idea.
They
sound like they're from Essex, but I don't know if Linsdale is there.
This is our resident Road to Shangri-La British expert, and he doesn't know where Linsdale is either.
You could imagine where they're coming from then. If even I don't know where it is, which is I think a big part of their journey, because
I looked it up. It's listed as the Paris of Leighton.
Oh God. No, I don't think so.
What is the Leighton?
Leighton? It's definitely not like Paris.
This is the Paris of Leighton.
Oh right, okay. Well, so what does that mean? That it's like it's the France of England.
Anyway, we're getting and they Dan, I think you have some audio here ready from them where they're going to be talking about what the gathering of the Juggalos means to them.
It is going to be the biggest thing I've ever done. I mean, apart from raising two kids, it's going to be like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. It's like impossible to explain.
That's huge, isn't
it? And you know what? We talk about this and how poor people, people lower on the economic scale can be subjugated a lot in the media as well. I think that this really makes this a beautiful thing. They're crossing the Atlantic. They're doing something they've been dreaming about for a long time. And they do give a shout out to their kids first, like they're not being completely selfish. They are recognizing that.
Slightly an afterthought, I felt just like a little bit.
What do you think, Dan?
Ridiculously excited. He was like, "Oh shit, kids, yeah."
I mean, no, Nikki covered this quite well. She said, "My kids are my most important thing in my life, but I want to have experiences in my life too." And so she was like, and as we'll talk about here, is that they had to sacrifice a lot to make this happen. This was, like I said, very working class people. Yeah, I'm sure there's more derogatory terms for them, as there are for much of the Juggalo community. But these people, as they mentioned, I think this is, I'll get a little bit of the spoiler for the film. They mentioned that they were homeless for a little bit of time.
Yes.
So that tells you.
Yes, that's the quick line that I wanted to mention. Sorry, I got too excited to cut you off. Yes, that was such an interesting line that's really run past. Sorry, Dan, continue.
No, it's very important because they mentioned very working class people. And so, I mean, it is a testament to how much of a draw the gathering of the Juggalos is, which I think is a great sell for the beginning of the film, and the kind of the course of it is that they're going from middle of nowhere England relatively to middle of nowhere America, and they talk about their journey and how it was quite a thing, and that this is a journey of a lifetime for them, especially since they come from a place where it seems like this kind of subculture, there's nobody like that there. I'm sure that there's not British Juggalos. The number of them that there are can certainly be counted on both hands, and so the fact that they're going to a place where there's 10,000 of them is just mind-blowing to them.
Well, to be fair, ICP has every once in a while has toured through England and Australia as well. But of course, most of their fan base is going to be in Middle America. So, I mean, they have gone out there. I don't know the exact audience they're playing to. I'm sure it's not, arena sized or anything like that. It's probably clubs or small theaters. But I mean, these guys obviously live it. And it's such a, I mean, we could talk about these guys all day. I mean, I find it interesting that they are wearing lower economic scale, lower class, I guess you can say. I don't like that term, but lower class, American clothing walking around England, like their camo shorts and their tank tops as well. Like they picked up a cultural strain here and they are living it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they certainly. I feel like they're looking for something else out in their life, right? And it's apparent that that's super important to them.
But I appreciate that they're aspirational in that aspect. I like enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is my favorite thing about anything. There's a lot of people who don't exhibit any sort of enthusiasm. Whatever they found something here, and they're going to live their dream, and they're sacrificing for it, and they're doing it. My only issue with Laz and Nikki is sometimes throughout the movie they wear matching clothing, and I truly resent couples who do that. I have serious issues with that. But other than that aspect,
I think that was just a safety issue.
Is that a safety issue? but I dig that as well. Yeah, I dig that. Yeah.
So what were some of your other favorite aspects of this, Rob? I want to hear from you. What were some of your what did you think that was very interesting about ICP and about the documentary and about Laz and Nikki? What were your kind of take homes?
Yeah.
For Laz and Nikki, I just thought it was they're an interesting subject just because they seemed so out of place, like out of context, so, where they're coming from, and which is again, I don't know where it is actually, but I think it's very a very sort of boring, place. I mean, there's a lot of very boring places in the UK, and we sort of pride ourselves on doing boring better than anyone else, to be honest. And I think what they were really looking for was like this some form of glamour. It seemed to me they were looking for something to take them out of their sort of like humdrum life. And I already got the first time you see them, they're interviewed, you still got the feeling that they felt trapped. They're like trapped in their life, and they had 2 kids, and I think they were talking about something else that was coming up. I can't remember what it was, and you just felt like these guys were paying off their house. Was it? Yeah, and you just felt like this. And actually, I think he even said it is like if this is my only chance. I think he said something like that. My one chance, I'm going to do something like this in my life. And I was like, oh God. And I thought, I just felt, oh,
it's beautiful.
I mean, there's something beautiful about finding glamour at the gathering of the Juggalos. It's beautiful. I think that's fascinating. And just how starstruck they got later on when they were just around all of it. Like, I think that was great.
They're like, Shaggy, that was Shaggy right there. He just drove by, like drunk as hell in a cart, a golf cart.
Yeah. And just to give a kind of counterpoint to this, with Team Chaos, Mama Bear and Nick, who's her husband's son, which is great, and Charlie Bear. They come into it with a lot of big different attitude. I think you have an audio quote sound from there.
Which one is this one? This is Whoop Whoop.
This is where maybe you don't. Oh, the old man quote. No, is that it? I don't even know, Dan. Fuck it. So this is, they say this is where you come if you want to see some strange shit. They're coming into it as just like a fun escape, something that you can do. But very quickly, we're also introduced to maybe my personal single favorite person in the entire movie in terms of individual peoples. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I assume it's the weird rapper guy. No, oh wait, no. Am I right?
How dare you? No, my favorite person, because I loved.
Oh, I know. Sorry, hold on. Officer Be Nice.
Yes. That's
the lady who was doing the officer who was doing the kind of traffic control and shit. That.
Yeah,
she was lovely, man. I was like, what the hell? This girl is so nice. She's kind of fit as well. She's quite hot.
She's fit, and you know it. Yeah, she is I think she's a Hardin County like highway patrol person. She's just the most sincere, lovely person. She is the police officer that you want, and her descriptions of the Insane Clown Posse phenomenon and how naive and wonderful she is. This one I know you have some audio that I cut out from Officer Be Nice. Play that, Dan.
Well, we heard that the Insane Clown Posse, they're like a psychedelic, almost a thrash band. I'm not exactly sure of the genre that it reaches, but I know that there are people of all ages that are fans. The fans are, they're called the Juggalos.
Okay.
Yeah. I liken it to how the Deadheads followed the Grateful Dead. Mm-hmm. That's how I picture that. I've never had a bad experience with the Juggalo. I think people are people. You know, if you treat them with respect, you get respect in return. There have been arrests for drugs. As far as DUIs, we've had some last year. So we just encourage, because it's a self-contained area, we just encourage people to stay in the area if, they've been drinking. If they're under the influence of anything, just stay in the area.
It's beautiful. I mean,
that's a supercut of everything she said.
That she is in the film for less than a minute, and she was in one of my favorite characters because I feel like she is emblematic of what this town is like. You were talking a minute ago, Rob, about how this is some like boring town in England that they came from, where they literally went to the most boring town in the United States thereafter. I looked up information on. So Cave in Rock was a place where they did the Juggalo gathering for, I don't remember exactly how many years. It was definitely 2007 through 2013. So one thing to know about the gathering. Hardin County. They picked these obscure little places, and they really focused on this town and what the town's reaction to it was. And Officer Be Nice was one of the most glowing people there for this thing that happened in her town for 7 years. It is a town of 318 people. Cave in Rock, Illinois. The principal feature and tourist attraction is the nearby Cave in Rock, which you can imagine is literally a cave in a rock. It is a magical place. So this is where they choose to do these things from year to year. And so I think the townsfolk here were one of the most exciting things. I'll get to that in my favorite quotes here in a sec.
Well, 2020, it was supposed to return there for the first time in a long time. We were going to go there.
No, we were going to go to Garrettsville. No. Garrettsville, Ohio.
Oh, Garrettsville. I fucked up. Sorry about that. But I did also love, so they asked a guy there about Hardin County, because of course there were preachers there who were protesting, and someone said, I don't know if there's a virgin in Hardin County, because they were worried about the gathering taking. Yeah. Anyway, I'm just talking out. Early on, 2 Live crew from Florida, actually from California, but they moved to Florida. Actually, they call this the Woodstock of the new millennium. What do you think about that?
That's beautiful. That is a beautiful way to put it. I love it. It is like I think Brian, you're the one who said this before. This is the last punk festival. This is the last truly punk festival, and that's it. And they make parallels to Woodstock from time to time in the film. I think it was Twisted said that they had gone with ICP to Woodstock '99, and they're like, the Gathering of the Juggalos blows it away.
Yeah, and that's not fair to compare Woodstock to Woodstock '99, but I know what you're saying. Earlier, just kind of walking through the film a little bit, we see Juggalo Jail, where you can.
That's funny. I was like, is that a real thing? I was like, oh, it looks like it. I was like, I'm not sure.
Where one Juggalo could put another Juggalo in Juggalo Jail, which they had like this giant birdcage looking thing there. So Dan, I have to ask you a question. If you went to the Gathering of the Juggalos, which we will in 2021, what would be the reason you ended up in Juggalo Jail?
Ooh, that's a good question. Why would I end up in Juggalo Jail? Because to give Rob a little context and give our listeners, I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I'm a pacifist. For all of these things. This is true. Who knows what it is? I'm a virgin. No, okay, I won't. No.
Maybe you put yourself in jail just because you failed at some of these things.
As much as I coming to love ICP, I will fail to be a juggalo for various like key prerequisites for being it. It's true, but
I don't.
Okay,
that's
so
not fair.
I'm kidding. But to this end, so we one thing we like to do on the show are pros and cons, and we'll get to the cons of the Juggalo Jail. But I'll address this now since it's already come up. The one of the things about this film that they did highlight a little bit is that there were people of color who were fans of Insane Clown Posse. However, the first time that we see a person of color is probably not until 20 minutes into the film, and it's literally because they put that person of color, a black man, in jail.
It was good-natured. And we see
It was
Ice-T
good-natured. He was kind of
personally.
laughing at it.
The first voice you hear is also Ice-T, but yeah, it was good-natured as well. But yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, this is true. True. Fair
I
point,
didn't
fair
see him upset.
Yeah.
When he was in jail. I think he was just searching through his pockets for something. And did we find out why he was there? Did he say? I can't remember.
I don't think they gave a good reason.
No, he talked about his experience. He said that basically, like I think he stole some money from somebody, got in a fight. They literally drove him to the next state, dropped him off. He found his way back, and they're like, no, you're in the Juggalo Jail for now. So it's literally like a cage like you would see in a circus. I believe it's actually a prop for some of the shows, and they literally just put him inside of it with caution tape all around it.
Yeah.
Justice happens at the gathering.
Sobriety stuff, though, and this comes into effect throughout the movie as well. I mean, we do see various substances and stuff, but one interesting thing is this is definitely a pre-sober Shaggy 2 Dope, which is on full display throughout the movie. He seems out of control.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that? Did you know? I for one didn't know that he was sober. I didn't realize he was sober. That's
you didn't know that?
A new thing to me. No. But he does mention at one point. So one of my favorite moments of the film, definitely in the largely in the pros column, is Shaggy 2 Dope going just driving everywhere in his golf cart jumping. He literally, like you said, this is one of those moments where some of his craziest drunk shit is being caught on camera, where he's literally jumping the golf cart and just crashing into cars, taking out, bumpers and taking out rear view mirrors. And he's like, it's cool, man.
Yeah, well, that's one of those things that's cool until he runs into a child or an overweight person.
Then it got awkward.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
They cut that in the edit, though, I think.
Yeah,
left that on the floor.
He is a sober guy. You could even watch like when they go on shows together, and Violent J is smoking or whatever. Like Shaggy 2 Dope abstains from everything now. But this is definitely in his pre-sober days. So you wouldn't be the only sober person there.
True. There you go. So let's go on to this because we'll kind of get to one thing. I think we should cut it down to pros and cons to give an idea of what I thought was really good about the film and what I thought was, for both of us. So let's start covering the pros. I want to hear what some of Well, so we talked about one of my favorite things is Shaggy 2 Dope just being unhinged. I thought that was hella fun. Another thing, speaking of drugs, there was 1 full minute dedicating to people tripping balls. I thought that was...
I absolutely loved that bit as well.
Tell me, Rob. Tell me what you felt.
I just, I think that was probably the first time in the documentary that I almost pissed myself with laughter. It was so funny. It was, I mean, in terms of like editing as well, the timing of the shots was, I just thought, spot on. And it came in quite a frenetic moment, and then they just cut to that, and yeah, they did dedicate like a minute just showing these people with their eyeballs literally just like almost about to pop out of their heads.
Just slack-jawed, like unable to control their jaws. And listen, who hasn't been there?
Coming out from one of them.
Yeah, who hasn't been there, but who has had that captured on camera for tens of thousands of people to see on YouTube? Not me. Mm-hmm. Beautifully cut, beautifully edited. One of my favorite moments in the film.
I mean, yeah, I'm fine with that. That's typical festival stuff. But let me put that in context, though. This is a psychopathic documentary, which makes you skeptical of it in a bit in terms of its objectivity. But what I liked about it is they weren't afraid to go negative, or let's just say to show things that might be considered negative to a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? Talking
Absolutely.
About the homelessness of some of their characters, or showing people in a drugged out state. It would be very easy for, let me put it this way. If I was with Psychopathic and I was like, we're going to do a documentary project, I would be like, it'd be very easy to step into the temptation of, let's show everything being positive. Let's show none of the behavior that you might think is stereotypical that might be completely different. And that would definitely be this montage.
Is Psychopathic the ICP's personal media thing?
Psychopathic is their record label and media company.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, so that would be, I think, one of the things that they covered, the Psychopathic Records put out the first documentary, which was just about them. And I think that that's what this ended up being, was focusing a lot on the other Psychopathic Records artists. There were definitely, we saw basically like minute to two long bits of those artists playing on stage, and then interviews with them as well. So like you said, there was a lot of it felt like, and this is one of the things that kind of went into the cons category for me, is this felt like an infomercial or like an advertisement made by Psychopathic Records about Psychopathic Records. Which, like, for instance, so? I feel like it. One of the cons was we saw Twisted play twice, who is in critical terms, I mean, they're a big Psychopathic Records band. They're not.
They're not anymore.
Yeah, that's right. We didn't see Andrew WK. Andrew WK performed at this festival. Maybe there's something I don't know. Didn't see him at all. Two Live Crew.
I could very much imagine his record label not wanting to, or not. Maybe it was too expensive to license his music.
Fair enough.
I mean, there really could be question, but I mean, it is infomercial in a way, but I don't think it was. I didn't find it infomercial at all. You did learn about it, but it's not like they were selling it necessarily. I mean, maybe that's because I want to go anyway. But again, they showed negative or things that were not just purely positive. You know what I'm saying?
You have a point there, and I think they are showing it for what it is. Is that, of course, is half the reason we're doing this podcast is because this is a band that's been very maligned for people saying that there's this kind of synergy between this band inciting riots and violence and these people who are prone to violence being incited. I mean, whatever, they've been doing that with music forever.
And that gets into my biggest negative as well. I mean,
and so to that end, though, is they talk about the fact that these dudes are literally hitting each other with speed limit signs and engaging in fairly violent wrestling events, like with barbed wire. There is the JCW, Juggalo Championship Wrestling, that has its own aspects of violence, but they didn't, like you said, gloss over the fact that their dudes literally just like hitting each other with baseball bats covered in barbed wire. And they had a very kind of painfully long wrestling match between dudes just beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
That was probably the thing that made me almost borderline uncomfortable.
Yeah, so when we did pro and cons, of course we didn't talk about this enough. But that's not surprising. Like essentially, I picked a favorite lyric because it is. We're primarily doing music, and we're a least favorite lyric, so pro and a con. One guy you mentioned before, who had my favorite lyrics of the entire documentary. Dan, why don't you play that audio?
Oh, yeah, that is absolutely great. So another great character in addition to Officer.
This is my favorite lyrics in the entire documentary.
Yeah.
Going down the street, driving my cab, looking at the girls, they ain't half bad. There's one there in tight jeans, looking pretty good, if you know what I mean. There's another girl flagging me down, wanting to go to a bar downtown. I get her there as safe as can be, and she turns her around and she says to me, "Think of me my designated driver, but I don't want to be your designated driver. I want to be a designated something else instead." Well, what is that? Well, DPLA wanna be a DPLA wanna be a DPLA wanna be a designated pussy licker. DPLA wanna be a DPLA wanna be a DPLA wanna be a designated pussy licker.
That guy was legendary. We don't know his name. We don't know anything else about him except he is introduced before, or I think after, a freestyle battle amongst people in the audience. And he's just some dude outside who just owns it way better than any of them.
But let me even narrow in more on my favorite lyric for the documentary. Let's break this down a little bit. DPLA. Designated D, pussy P, liquor. What's the A, Dan?
I don't know.
The lack of A.
It's liquor.
Is that?
Liquor. Of course.
Wow, because I found the inclusion of the A to be so surreal. It's really artistic in a way, and that really, the DPLA, designated pussy. I guess maybe Rob's right.
Maybe.
You might be right, but like throwing that A in there, I found to be surreal and made me confused, and it brought me to a higher plane of consciousness.
Yeah, it was a beautiful thing, and overall, I didn't parse it that much, but definitely it was a highlight of the film for me.
You should have, damn it.
And it's not like exactly like he looks like the typical kind of ICP fan. This dude is considerably older, missing a few teeth, glasses, kind of looks like the kind of guy. I don't know where you would say you would see him, but you definitely wouldn't expect to see him at an ICP event. But he was a highlight.
But I mean, there was older people there as well. I think, Dan, you have a quote from an old man on The Family there.
Okay. The Whoop Whoop Comp extract?
No, the old man on Family thing.
You didn't give me that one.
Old man quote on Family. You don't have that?
Negative. Let me see.
Anyway, that's fine. Yeah, I sent you 6. You have it, but that's okay. It's okay. You should go to Juggalo jail for that, for one. So that would be the pro lyric. The negative lyric, I mean, again, this wasn't a purely musical thing. I was very disappointed by the biggest Ice-T fan not knowing the lyrics to Original Gangster. We see Ice-T's performance, and he brings up a Ice-T super fan, and he wants him to be his hype man or rap along. Like, I didn't know Ice-T's music. Very disappointed. As an Ice-T fan, I could have done a better job than that. That was my least favorite lyric or the other thing. But the other aspect, and it's not a directly musical one, is this is not a good look in the post-concussion era of watching trash wrestling guys, backyard wrestling guys hitting each other over the head. Not a good look for that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, that got ugly. Yeah. What were your pros and cons of this, Rob? Tell me what your favorite moment and your least favorite moment of the doc was.
You might be putting him on the spot here a bit. I'll let him think. I'll let him think.
Yeah, that's
but,
true.
I mean,
we'll let
overall,
you think, because we got a chance to write this down.
Yeah. Overall, though, I mean, it's all about the kind of collage, a montage of all the different people, and that includes a great little montage of the Juggalo greeting, which I think you have audio of, and I've been once from trying to prompt you to play some audio, but let's try that again. We get a great, well-edited compilation of the Juggalo official greeting. Why don't you play that, Dan?
Sure. This was, of course, anybody who knows them knows what their official greeting is, but they make it very clear in this.
It's more like a high, but it's a whoop whoop all the way down through the road. Right here, whoop whoop. Whoop whoop! Whoop whoop! Whoop whoop! Whoop whoop!
And it keeps going and going. It's a beautiful thing. 45 seconds of whoops.
Yeah. It's really just the color. It's a motley crew of the family doing the whoop whoops. I that's one of my favorite bits of the movie. Just the the wave, the cascade wave of all of the whoop whoops. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me give you my favorite point and favorite point or two and my least favorite point or two of the doc. So, we already talked about the minute of people dedicated to chirping balls. Absolutely essential part of that. Shaggy Too Dope in all of his mayhem. But I think my favorite lyric or favorite quote has to be from towards the beginning of the film when a man was reading off of a 2008 era, message board. You might be hearing a little bit of the frogs in the background of mine. That's probably.
Oh, those are frogs. I was looking around my apartment. What the fuck is? Okay.
So sorry for everybody listening. We have frogs in the background, but the city folk. It was just the city folk in the film were given both whatever. They're gonna have a lot of fun. People like Officer Be Nice, but my favorite ones were the horrified city folk. And my favorite horrified city folk is reading off of a message board, and he's saying that the people are gonna come here, and they're saying things like, "This will be a good place to do some hangings. This will be a good place to chop off some heads with our hatchets and watch them float down river." Like, he's reading this. This is just the canonical, old man scared of the people coming to his town. Like, this is timeless. And we are seeing a manifestation of something that is beautiful and timeless. Is horror by old people at what the young people are saying. It is a beautiful
It's typical.
moment.
Like I mentioned the quote before, they mentioned something about killing virgin or raping virgins, and then one reasonable guy says, "This town doesn't have any virgins anyway."
Yeah, he said it's first we're gonna sacrifice goats, then we're gonna sacrifice virgins. Then he just had a good laugh at it, and so he got it. I don't know. There was something about the horror of this guy, this one guy, and everyone else is like, whatever. It's gonna be fun. I guess I already spoke a little to the cons of this. And let me go back to the pros. My most iconic image for me was that hazy night scene where it was about a minute or two, I think, after the Juggalo wrestling, where I guess it's supposed to simulate the kind of hazy, drinking and drug induced kind of late night vibe that's going on. They definitely had a kind of the camera was definitely made to have, when they were doing the effects, they put an effect on it so that it looked like it was kind of a fade kind of coming across after, as the camera moved around. And then there were a bunch of people setting pallets on fire. And then there was this reflection of the firelight off of the porta potties that they kind of fixed on for about 5 seconds. And I thought it was just kind of weird and beautiful. And I loved it. Any other favorite moments of yours, Rob?
Anything? Is there anything else you want?
I thought it was quite fun. They were interviewing another guy. He was a younger guy, and you just thought he was a town resident, and he was quite positive, and I thought that was nice. And he sort of, at the end he said, "Well, but I'm not going to go." And the sort of camera pulled back and took a wide shot, and he's like, "Because I'm in jail at the moment." And I thought that was quite. I like that. I I like the way they did that. I thought that was pretty fun.
Good punchline. Good setup for that. Brian,
Yeah.
you're the biggest proponent of this. Are there any aspects that you thought were downsides to it?
Watching the guys hit each other on the head, that's sort of the attitude of trying to get just that sort of meager attention, but doing it in a self-destructive way. I find that to be not good. That's really my least. I like how the movie is done in a filmmaking sort of way, but there's some behavior in it that I just didn't find positive like that.
But that happens, so they got to show it, right?
Exactly. So there's two levels of looking at this. There's the filmmaking aspects and the subject of it. The filmmaking aspects I was really happy with. I really thought they did a good job with it. But there was just some of the negative stuff, but hopefully there's less of that sort of thing in 2020 anyway. But man, I dug it. It.
We forgot to mention.
It's skewed because we chose it because I love this thing. So
yeah, exactly. So I kind of already touched on some of the cons that I had, but
yeah. So we touched that. How many hatchets would you give this?
Okay. I would say we're gonna rate everything on a 1 to 5 hatchet scale. So I'm leaning towards the 3.5. I think it's got some great moments. I think it's got some I think the wedding scene at the end is iconic.
Okay, why don't you play the audio from the wedding scene as well? So we've been dancing around it a bit, but a big surprise in the movie, Laz and Nikki, Britain's couple, I think the real royal family of England. I think now, actually, let's bring that up. Now that was it William is abdicating? Now that William's abdicating, I think Laz and Nikki should step in to be the new royal couple of England. Do you think that would go over well?
I certainly give them a home. So.
Yeah, okay. So they Laz springs on Nikki. I wonder if the filmmakers had something to do with this, or Laz took it upon himself. I'm going to guess the filmmakers did.
I'm going to guess the filmmakers because I think they weren't exactly the most forward of couples, were they? I mean, they were pretty passive generally.
Yeah, Laz.
I'd be surprised if he did that on his own.
Yeah, Laz decides to that Violin J is going to wed them in a very sort of impromptu ceremony in one of the tents at one of the smaller events at the gathering. And here's some audio from that really beautiful
event. For me, it's the most exciting event of it. I'll preface it with that
it's
because
beautiful.
It is.
I thought it was beautiful.
It was a beautiful event because it was a Violent J DJ set / him handing out hot dogs and grilled steaks / a marriage of which the beautiful thing about it is Violent J as the presider carrying a copy of his autobiography as the Bible on which they will swear. Freaking gorgeous.
Amen.
I mean, who wouldn't want that? Here's the clip from the film.
Whoa. Instead of amen, what's they do?
Promise to come home early.
Proud.
Keep your dick out of other bitches. Play with her titty nipples. And honor, love, obey, and listen to her endless bitching when it happens. And stick with her even when y'all are old and folded and nasty. And after her titties drop and everything else happens in the future. Will you still be there for her? Is it true love? All you have to do is say the words, fuck yes I do. He does! Make some noise! Now, beautiful lady. How you doing?
Alright, nervous.
Nervous? Okay, it's a big moment.
Yeah.
And I guess you know what the question is. Do you promise and vow to love, obey, juggle his balls, top him off in the morning? Will you stand by him? Will you let him spend your money? Will you hold him and cherish him and bail him out of jail every time he gets arrested. Will you do all of this and love him and honor, obey him, and cook him good snacks? She does, Juggalos. It sounds like absolute true love from both of them. We're ready to be committed, and it's a Juggalo and a Juggalo for life. So I, within this book, now pronounce you Juggalo and Juggalette, man and wife.
Beautiful, beautiful stuff. That book, of course, being his autobiography.
Absolutely. The juxtaposition of this thing where they're so emotional and they're so they're obviously kind of overwhelmed with this, with the sort of
Incredibly embarrassed at the same time.
some of that. Yeah,
That's what I thought. There was, oh my God, look, all these people looking at me. It was very awkward.
absolutely. That sort of juxtaposition between the beauty of it, the embarrassment, and the sort of lowbrow humor of the whole thing, I found to be beautiful. I thought it was great.
That was beautiful. So I still give it 3.5. There were some lacking parts that we talked about, but for the most part, I watched it again for the second time today, and I enjoyed it even more. So what do you got, Rob? What are your on a 1 to 5 hatchets? What do you got?
I'm the same as you. I would give it a 3.5. Yeah, for similar reasons. There was some really, really great moments. I thought generally they captured the thing quite well. The only thing I found about the kind of filmmaking aspect of it was just like, I just had some problems with the pacing. It was just pressing ahead, like all the time, really, really fast, which I kind of get because they were trying to show the sort of like the manic excitement of the event and everything. But sometimes I think it needed a space to breathe, which they were trying to do through the artist interviews, I think. But I kind of agree with you in that regard, where especially now I know that they're all on the label, it felt a little bit sort of like shoehorned in to sort of like, have that stuff. But generally, I really enjoyed it. I just remembered there was I thought, really nice scene towards the end when the final show had been played, and he had some guys were still hanging around in the mud pit at the front, and some people were looking for their like watch or their wallet, but there's some other guys and girls there just cleaning up. They're just tidying up because they wanted to keep everything clean. I thought that was cool. That was a really nice touch.
Indeed, I agree wholeheartedly.
Boom. Yeah, those good moment stuff. I mean, yeah, to me, like this movie really shapes how I think about the Insane Clown Posse. It really, like I said, the juxtaposition, the familiar aspect, the beauty of having the British Juggalos. This is 5 hatchets all the way.
5 hatchets, no shame in that.
It's one of my favorite documentaries. That's no hyperbole. Like, if I, it really, really is. That's what I think about that.
All right, fair enough. No shame in that. So, Clown College. What was learned from this? You kind of touched on it a little bit, but go ahead. Is our take home? What is our take home from this documentary?
Yeah. Okay. So, do you want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's. You know what it really is, and I kind of touched on this. It's that sometimes you forget the value that different things that you might not value may have, or to say it another way, like something that might be not important to some people can be actually a really culmination of a beautiful experience for them. So you have Team Chaos who just goes to this gathering of the Juggalos every year, and it's just part of what they do. But for this British couple, they've been saving for it. This might be their only chance before they have to start paying for their kids' school, whatever they're doing. And it's important to, when you're putting together an event or when you're having an experience, to remember that this might be something very important to people, and to keep that in mind. And as someone who puts on events and has done things, like, you forget that sometimes, like I remember I don't want this to highlight my bullshit or whatever, but when I was at university with Dan at the University of Florida, I did a lot of different social events when I was working in the dormitories as an RA, and I put together like this kind of small Valentine's Day social thing. And I had forgotten about it. And like a year and a half later, something like that, I walked into a kid's dorm and they had a poster for this stupid small event that I put on still on their wall. And I was like, why the hell do you have that on your wall? He's like, oh, I met my girlfriend at that wall. We've been dating ever since. And I was like, that's preposterous. But it's also a beautiful thing because it was something that I put together as a throwaway at the last minute. But it's something that had a lasting effect on someone. And the Gathering of the Juggalos is something that people make fun of on infomercials, and it's something that, other people go to every year as an afterthought. Some people value, but some people just kind of do it. It's also something that this couple might have their once-in-a-lifetime sort of moment for that they'll be talking about for the rest of their lives. And to me, whether it's the Gathering of the Juggalos or it's visiting the Eiffel Tower or it's going to Disney World, whatever it is, you got to keep that in mind and appreciate that. How about that?
There you go. You want to give this to Rob? Does Rob have any take-home the Clown College? This is for edification of the audience as well as Rob.
That.
What's that?
I can't top that, man. That was good. That was good. No, I don't. What can I say after that?
He's learned what the Paris of Lighton is. He's learned about the Paris of Lighton.
That is capital I important.
I've found the next place I'll visit when I'm back home.
And you learned there are ICP fans in England.
Yeah,
Huge.
so I'll watch out for that next time I'm back home.
Yeah, fair enough. So I guess my take home from this whole video was that I've been to my share of festivals in my life. I went to the Fest in Gainesville a number of times, and there's a camaraderie that goes on there. And I also went to Brian went with me to this, was to the Harvest of Hope Festival, which is probably one of my first ever campout festivals. And I feel so many parallels between what I saw at the Gathering of the Juggalos on this documentary and my experiences at these festivals in terms of like the dumb shit I did, the dumb things I did with other people, and the camaraderie I felt with the people who were fans of these bands. And so for me, it just kind of took home the fact that, I mean, not to say that we're all like each other, but they really did talk about the family aspects of it almost ad nauseum in the documentary. But it really does make you feel like, despite the fact that like within a few years just before this, the FBI was investigating the Insane Clown Posse as like a gang affiliated group or like a gang. And it's like, I think this was kind of their way of saying like, look, this is all like, we're doing this together. We're all having the same weird ass sense of humor about going around dressing like clowns and cutting people's heads off. It's all for fun. Like, we just want to do what everyone else does, is get inebriated on our favorite substances and have a lot of fun with our friends. And the fact that the band, or rather ICP, and all of the bands were just as integrated into the Gathering of the Juggalos as, I don't know, any of the punk bands who are going to see music at the Fest in Gainesville are. They're just walking around, they sign signatures, and they just are just around the thing. I don't know. It seemed like it was a very democratic place of just kind of decent people just coming together for something. It's like, how often do you feel like you really get together with people to just bond over just like they felt like family? How often do you feel like that? Especially in these divided times, it's usually an us versus them thing. And they're just like, you know what? Everybody's us. We're all us. That was a cool vibe. I dug that.
While you were saying that, it's almost more symbolic than anything that they're canceling the Gathering in 2020. There's also almost something poetic about that. This is not the time for people. This is not a time of people coming together.
No unity in 2020
or spiritually. 2020 could not sustain a Gathering of the Juggalos.
True. True.
Yeah.
So
adaptation. Were you finished with that, Dan?
Yeah, I was finished with my thought. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thoughts a bit much, but it was something. If this documentary could be adapted into another form of media, whether it could be a play, a TV show, a song, who would do it? What would it be? I mean,
pantomime, isn't it?
An interlude Weber pantomime. Rob brings up.
Hey, you stole it. Why'd you steal this from me, Rob? You robbed me of it.
I would highlight. I could see a movie starring Simon Pegg about Laz and Nikki. I think that they could highlight the Britishness of it and going to the gathering of the Juggalo.
It wouldn't be Simon Pegg, it would be his partner in crime, Nick. What's his name? The other guy. The bigger guy.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah, the big guy.
You know what I'm talking about? I can't remember his surname. I feel that'd be him though. He would be. He's perfect for the role, actually.
I mean, Edgar Wright, Simon Pegg, that sort of British crew of filmmakers doing a movie called. It could be just even called Liz and Nikki Go to the Gathering or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
So you're saying Nick Frost would pay.
British.
Nick Frost. Yes. Thank you.
Nick Frost. Yeah.
Nick Frost. Yes.
I could see that movie, and I could see the wedding. You know, kind of them dirty and messy and high and messed up and just taken aback by all this American nonsense stuff.
And Kathy Burke would play what's the girl? If you know Kathy Burke, she's another British actress. She's fantastic, but actually that would work very well.
That's my adaptation, Dan. Do you have one?
I can't top that. I mean, mine was going to be just kind of a general thought about, like you said, kind of a pantomime thing. Like I imagine a stage play.
Shut up.
So I'm not just stealing. Rob definitely stole my idea for this, but that's fine. I'll let you have this. But basically, it was the idea is I want to see some sort of adaptation where you do something. I haven't fully thought this out, so I won't go too much into it. But I mean, the fact that mimes and the black and white paint, it just feels like something matches here with the kind of a camaraderie moment that they could really romanticize. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of emotions being portrayed in this, and I feel like if it could be explored in some sort of theatrical stage thing. I'm not sure where to take it though.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. I think we're just about done here, right? I think
so we just got to
sum it up.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess one of the important things we got to talk about is next episode that we're going to be doing is about, we haven't discussed this yet. It's going to be about the Ringmaster. That's what I thought. Yeah. I have it on my list.
The second ICP album.
The second ICP album.
We've already done the first, Rob.
Where I believe.
Why don't you give? So yeah, we'll be going over the Ringmaster, the second ICP album. I've been listening to it a little bit. Haven't really dived too deeply into it, but we'll give everyone a chance to check that out. And by everyone, I mean Dan and I.
Yeah, exactly. All two of us.
All two of us. Why don't you give all the contacts and all the bullshit?
Yeah. So we do the internets. We do the internets. And so you can reach us at roadtoshangrila@gmail.com. We're on Mixcloud as Road to Shangri-La. We're on Instagram as Road to Shangri-La as well. So of course, so reach out to us.
Do you have any contact info or anything you want to plug or whatever?
I don't know. I think we're good. Just this plan is to keep this little party going until we go to the gathering of the Juggalos whenever it ends up happening.
That's true. We are going to be doing it. Go to ArtGare on YouTube, ARTGER. Go to ArtGare on Facebook. If you're in Shanghai, go to my bullshit shows. And you're probably not going to do that either. Rob, do you have anything you want to plug your contact? Rob doesn't have shit going. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us, Rob Ellis.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. It was wonderful.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
Whoop, whoop.
All right.
Whoop.
For Dirty Hair, Dan Fitztastic, for Rob Ellis, and for me, DJ BO, saying Dara Otzi.
The end.